Whether it's a major character's sudden demise or a series-bending timeline shift, a masterful plot twist always leaves an audience floored. These TV twists stunned viewers and kept them talking for years. Whatever you thought of Dexter by the time the series ended in 2013, there's little denying that it was a brilliant crime drama in its early seasons, charting the life of blood splatter analyst Dexter Morgan, who operates as a vigilante serial killer in his spare time. The show captivated viewers with season-long story arcs that gradually revealed more about this fascinating character.
I'm telling you, Dexter is not who you think he is.
The culmination of that initial success came in Season 4, with the introduction of John Lithgow's diabolical Arthur Mitchell. The entire season follows Dexter and Mitchell, aka the Trinity Killer, as they uncover each other's identities, hoping to learn from Arthur's ability to hide in plain sight and seemingly have a convincing family life. Dexter gets closer to his fellow serial killer. In the last episode of the 4th season, Dexter gets the better of Arthur and kills him. But the final scene found Dexter returning home to discover that the Trinity Killer has killed his wife Rita before his own demise, leaving Dexter's son Harrison covered in his mother's blood. It was a truly terrifying and shocking moment that Dexter could never quite live up to again. Since its premiere in 1989, The Simpsons has become a pop culture phenomenon. With more than 750 episodes to date, the show has explored all kinds of themes, narrative devices, and plot twists.
Bart Simpson, I'm gonna do what clowns do best. Kill!
In fact, The Simpsons has even freakishly predicted the future on a few occasions. When it comes to plot twists, however, none beat the two-part episode Who Shot Mr. Burns. And because Part 1 was the final episode of Season 6, viewers had to wait almost 4 months for Season 7 in order to learn who shot the wealthy curmudgeon. The first episode revolves around Mr. Burns' various dastardly deeds, which turns the people of Springfield against him.
Since the beginning of time, man has yearned to destroy the sun. I will do the next best thing. Block it out.
Even his sycophantic assistant Smithers eventually joins the haters. And as the episode comes to a close, Mr. Burns is seen fighting with a mysterious someone until a shot rings out and he stumbles down the street before collapsing. With so many potential suspects, viewers went into a frenzy trying to work out who'd pulled the trigger. When it's eventually revealed that toddler Maggie Simpson accidentally, or not, shot him with his own gun, it was a twist few could have predicted. Making its debut on Disney Plus in 2021, WandaVision was the first Marvel television series that integrated directly with the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Starring Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, it takes place shortly after the events of Avengers Endgame. The show deals with an imaginary life that Wanda creates for herself, Vision, and their children in the strange town of Westview. Throughout the season, it becomes clear that everything is not what it seems. There's some dark power manipulating events and keeping Wanda trapped in Westview.
Oh, don't worry, darling. I have everything under control.
Then, Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall, turns WandaVision on its head. In a catchy musical number, nosy neighbor Agnes explains that she's actually a powerful witch known as Agatha Harkness. She's been using her abilities to learn about Wanda so she can absorb her supernatural powers. All of a sudden, the show morphs from a quirky, sitcom-like experience to a battle between two almost omnipotent figures, and things start to make more sense. Fans had been speculating for weeks about what was really going on in WandaVision, with many suspecting Agnes was really Agatha, a well-known villain from the comics. From the very beginning, Mr. Robot was jam-packed with twists and turns. Arriving on the USA Network in 2015, the show followed Elliot Anderson, who joins the hacking group F Society, under the leadership of the enigmatic Mr. Robot, to battle against the excesses of capitalism.
I started intercepting all the traffic on your network. That's when I noticed something strange.
By the end of the first season, it becomes clear that Mr. Robot is just one of several personalities Elliot has, as a result of his dissociative identity disorder. But the biggest plot twist came in the finale, when Elliot's entire personality came into question and viewers learned that he was just another fragmented part of his consciousness known as the Mastermind. The audience had never actually seen the real Elliot in the show's entire run. What's impressive about this revelation is that it still shocked everyone watching, despite the fact that many were expecting a twist of some kind to happen. The fantasy comedy series The Good Place revolves around several recently deceased characters who find themselves incorrectly assigned to the Good Place.
I mean, is this... Or...
Under the guidance of Michael, the group works to become better people in an attempt to prove that they belong in the nice version of the afterlife rather than the bad place. But in the season 1 finale, Michael's Gambit, the characters begin to notice unusual things about the good place and eventually discover that it's actually the bad place in disguise. The group has been in hell the whole time as part of an experiment where they eternally torture each other. It's a twist that thrusts the entire series into a new light.
They know this is the bad place. Eleanor figured it out.
This also allowed the good place to try fresh things and shift the narrative format in interesting ways. The NBC medical comedy Scrubs was a kind of show that could make you laugh out loud one moment and be weeping uncontrollably in the very next scene. Nowhere was that more clear than with the story of Ben Sullivan, played by Brendan Fraser, just one of many great guest stars who appeared on the series. The brother-in-law and best friend of John C. McGinley's Dr. Cox, Ben is diagnosed with leukemia by Zach Braff's character JD in season 1.
Listen, you guys wouldn't be keeping me here if there wasn't something potentially wrong with me, would you?
No, we wouldn't.
After successful treatment, Ben disappears and doesn't return until season 3 in the episode My Screw Up. Ben has been on a trip around the world to celebrate beating the disease, although Cox berates him for not having the necessary checkups during his 2-year absence. The senior doctor is also angered after JD loses a patient and takes on all of his cases, putting off attending some kind of event. By the end of the story, however, it becomes clear that the event is a funeral and the patient who's died is Ben. Cox has been hallucinating about him for the second half of the episode. The twist was devastating but brilliantly written and acted, earning the show an Emmy nomination. Despite having little build-up, Squid Game became one of Netflix's biggest hits ever when it arrived in 2021. Set in South Korea, the show is based around a battle royale-style game where contestants compete to make it to the next round, but face deadly consequences for being eliminated. Despite the large cast, the show concentrated on a few characters, such as protagonist Sung Gi-hun and the elderly Oh Il-nam, who occasionally acts as a mentor to Gi-hun.
Tug of war needs more than just raw strength.
The twist in Squid Game comes right at the end of the show. Having survived the contest, Gi-hun receives a mysterious card a year later and follows the instructions to a lavish building. Inside, he finds Il-nam, whom he had seemingly sent to his death during the competition. The elderly man explains in a cruel twist that he's the mastermind behind the Squid Game and took part only as a last-minute attempt to feel something, to have some fun, before dying from a brain tumor.
I wanted to just feel something. Just one last time before I die.
Considering how harmless and friendly Il-nam appears throughout the season and how many innocent or not-so-innocent people died in the game, this revelation feels like a genuine betrayal to audiences. Westworld is a sci-fi series set in the near future. Created by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, the show's plot centers around a Wild West amusement park, populated with android characters known as hosts. They act and look just like humans, but cannot cause harm, and are designed to fulfill the wishes of guests who pay to experience the unique amusement park. But like all good science fiction, Westworld hides some truths from the audience to keep the tension high.
If you're looking for the moral of the story, quite simply ask.
Problems arise early in the first season as some hosts begin to become sentient and remember all the things they've experienced. One of the principal characters of the show is Bernard Lowe, played by Jeffrey Wright, a programmer who works at Westworld and is a close friend of park director Dr. Robert Ford, played by Anthony Hopkins. In Season 1, Episode 7, Trompe-l'oeil, Bernard leads Teresa Cullen to a secret underground lab. While there, Dr. Ford emerges and reveals that Bernard is a host himself, based on Dr. Ford's former partner. Dr. Ford then orders Bernard to kill Teresa, shockingly marking the first time that a host kills a human. In 2018, Mike Flanagan's supernatural horror series, The Haunting of Hill House, arrived on Netflix to widespread acclaim. The story, based indirectly on Shirley Jackson's classic novel, largely concentrates on the exploits of the Crane family across 2 different timelines. The first showcases the family's paranormal experiences in Hill House after moving into the building, while the second deals with the trauma that lingers decades after they fled the home. Throughout her time in Hill House, Nell is haunted by a specter referred to as the Bent Neck Lady. This ghostly authority figure appears several times to her as a child and adult. Halfway through the first season, Nell returns to Hill House to try and confront her past, in a last effort to rid herself of the bent neck lady. While there, she experiences a vision of her family and dead mother, before accepting a necklace that is later revealed to be a noose. As she falls to her death, Nell re-experiences every previous time that she saw the bent neck lady, only this time from the point of view of the specter, realizing at the same time as the viewer that she has been haunting herself the whole time as a warning of her ultimate fate. A prequel to a huge hit like Breaking Bad was always going to have a hard time establishing itself and standing on its own feet. Yet Better Call Saul managed to do just that, and at least in some people's opinions, even managed to surpass its predecessor. Set several years before Walter White develops cancer and turns into a drug lord, the series puts the emphasis on Jimmy McGill, played by Bob Odenkirk, and showcases his transformation into criminal lawyer Saul Goodman. While small details on Better Call Saul allowed fans to figure out some of what was to come, there weren't many clues pointing to the fate of Howard Hamlin. Having pieced together a successful plot by Jimmy and Kim Wexler to ruin his reputation, during the 6th and final season, he goes to their apartment to confront them.
Yes, I will land on my feet. I will be okay. But you? Far from it.
Unfortunately, Lalo Salamanca is also present and mercilessly kills Howard with a single bullet to his head. A lot of the characters in Better Call Saul are entirely missing from Breaking Bad, so viewers obviously had an inkling that certain figures wouldn't make it past the series finale. However, that doesn't necessarily mean they had to die. Howard's death coming out of nowhere only added to the surprise factor often missing in prequels. Game of Thrones had a lot of moments that stunned viewers over the course of its run. After all, the fantasy drama was based on George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, a series of books that never shied away from killing off important characters or going in dramatic new directions. For those who'd read these original stories, many of the twists and turns that were to come in the show throughout the early seasons were nothing out of the ordinary. However, viewers who hadn't read the books probably weren't prepared for what was to come. Much of the first season of Game of Thrones deals with Ned Stark and his departure from Winterfell to King's Landing to become the hand of King Robert Baratheon. After the death of the king, Ned refuses to recognize Joffrey as the rightful heir, a decision that leads to his arrest and trial.
Your son has no claim to the throne.
Liar!
While most stories would have us believe that the hero will always be saved, Game of Thrones does away with such tropes. Ned is beheaded in the 9th episode, Baelor, in a moment that many viewers simply couldn't believe.